Hello and welcome to Chesapeake Weekly Home Edition. Well, we are officially in phase 2, and there's a lot to know about what that means for us here in Chesapeake. If you want to see exactly what the governor's order says, we have linked to that on our COVID-19 webpage. That's cityofchesapeake.net/COVID-19. And that's where you'll also see some of the changes locally within Chesapeake that you're going to start seeing because of this one step further back towards somewhat normalcy of phase 2. So one of the biggest areas where you'll see some changes is Parks, Rec, and Tourism. A lot of the stuff, if not most of it, is now back open. There are still some big restrictions like no groups over 50 people, still some modified hours and other things to be aware of. And you can get all of those details on the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism webpage, cityofchesapeake.net/PRT. One big thing that is not yet open is the campground at Northwest River Park, but they do actually expect that to be open before phase 2 ends. They're just doing some work down there. You're not going to really notice any big changes in a city facility operating procedures. So we still encourage everybody who can to do their business online whenever possible. That's still the safest way to go. If you do have to come into a city facility, it's a really good idea to call first. Call either 382-2489 or just call the department that you're going in to see to make sure that that service is going to be available the day that you go in. And as with everything, please continue to social distance, and we ask that you wear a mask in city facilities. So still working for you here, and all of our services are still available, but just with some of those light restrictions. So we're going to keep moving forward and hoping that we can be completely normal here sometime soon. Now, we've talked a lot about the Unified Command and how helpful that is for Chesapeake in our response to any kind of emergency situation, not just a pandemic, but hurricanes, any kind of terrorism things. The Unified Command is a really important structure and training for our folks who are going to be responding during times like that. And there's an important piece of the Unified Command that we really haven't gotten into much, and it's called the logistics section. So the logistics section is a group of people who take care of supplies, equipment maintenance, facilities, things like that. It's really important work that is so often behind the scenes. So we took some time to head over to the logistics team and see what they were up to.
So as you can see, we house the fire department supplies here. We also house other agency stuff here, but this has become now a COVID-19 supply warehouse, and we're functioning like a dual role here, where we're still supplying the fire side, and we're now supplying the whole side with the city of Chesapeake, and all the department heads come in here and get their supplies, send teams down. So as you can see, we're housing not just fire, but a whole lot of COVID supplies that have been coming in and continue to come into this incident's over. First wave was making sure we had enough paper products, toilet paper and paper towels. And as you can see, we really stocked up on that. But other things are like gowns that the firefighters wear or other departments wear to protect themselves. And then we have a lot of gloves. We have a lot of hand sanitizing wipes and a lot of sanitizing sprays to disinfect other vehicles and offices and stuff like that. In the very beginning, my team, we were being very proactive. We saw kind of the storm coming, and so we started getting supplies in here to get us, through the first couple of waves that we're getting ready to hit. And then as this propelled forward, more supplies came in, and as you can see, we're stocked, ready to go, and to get us through phase 1 and phase 2, and we're completely supplied to make that mission happen.
And another really important part in everyday city work, and most especially when we're in an emergency response, is our fleet maintenance division. So they're the men and the women who are keeping our vehicles on the road and able to actually respond to these emergencies. So they're really important, and we got a little bit of an insider look to see what their work is all about. So take a look.
Fleet is a member of the logistics team for the city of Chesapeake, being responsible for all the vehicles and equipment that the city operates. To take care of the COVID virus pandemic here, we made some changes to our operation. We started 2 shifts, so we don't have all the techs on the floor at one time. We've been able to social distance and keep them apart. So the garage is now open from 6 in the morning to 11:30 at night. We also took our office staff, and we have about 40%, 40 to 50%, depending on the day, working from home. So that frees up some space and social distancing in our office. We've noticed over this event that the fleet normally does about 1 million miles a month, but because some departments aren't working out and about as much as they used to, we've dropped about 200,000 miles a month, which has allowed us as a garage to catch up with some of the stuff that's been backing up here for repairs. So we're doing real good in keeping up. Our turnaround time has dropped, and I think our customers are a little bit happier getting their vehicles back a little bit quicker. And one of the things that we're having to do now as vehicles come into the shop is having to decontaminate them. So we have a whole process to decontaminate the vehicle, the ignition key, everything else before our techs get in there and start working on them. And with the motor pool vehicles that are being used after every use, we have to decontaminate it as well so that the next person using the motor pool can safely drive it around. Yeah, solid waste did have an uptake in their tonnage that they're picking up. Basically because people are home now, they got nothing else to do, so they start clearing out closets or doing renovations or clearing up the yards, so they had a whole lot more trash on the streets than they normally do. So Public Works, solid waste folks, we're busy taking care of all that trash.
And we couldn't go see Fleet Management without asking about their latest award. Yes, it's just their latest. They have a long string of awards that they receive because they're a very impressive division. And this latest one did not disappoint. It was from the Environmental Protection Agency.
And last year we were awarded the Local Government Agency Award with the EPA. That's the second time we received that award from them because of the increased recycling that we're doing with tires and cardboard and metal and everything else. So they recognize the fact that our recycling efforts improved over the past year, and that's why we got that award.
Well, hurricane season in the age of COVID-19 brings with it some new and different challenges. We reached out to the Emergency Management Division here in Chesapeake and spoke with Rob Braidwood to learn a few tips on how we could best prepare for hurricane season. Hey Rob, thank you so much for being here. Boy, you've been busy over the past few months, haven't you?
We've been very busy. Yeah, since February, we've been, in COVID response. Then we've had 2 hurricanes, and we've got some issues going on with civil disturbances in the region and the country. So we got a lot going on right now.
Well, let's talk hurricane season. We are officially in hurricane season, and like you said, there's already been 2 named storms. 2020 is not messing around, so we need people to really be prepared. And this year might be a little bit more challenging just because of all the COVID-19 stuff. How are we as a city taking a look at our plans and maybe adjusting to make sure that we're covering both of those types of emergencies?
Yeah, so it's something that everybody's working on right now because COVID presents such a challenge for us in how we order evacuations, do sheltering in a congregate setting. A congregate setting is where everybody's together. And so it's a challenge for everybody, from the federal government to the state government to the local government. Everybody's working on how we're going to solve this COVID sheltering problem. So, and then also on top of that, for our citizens, there's going to be some supply chain issues that could pop up to make hurricane response even more difficult than it already is. So what we're looking at the city is how are we going to change our sheltering operations? How are we going to adjust things to comply with social distancing, masking, testing, contact tracing? All that stuff is on the table. We're looking at all that stuff. But the big thing that citizens really need to focus on is getting their supplies in early and things like that.
So let's dive into what our community members should be doing. We always tell them immediately as soon as you can to start prepping that emergency kit. What's going to be different about that this year? Anything extra that they should consider throwing in there because of COVID?
Well, obviously, the things that you need to social distance, like masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, that's going to be super important this year, especially if you're thinking about going to a shelter where you're going to be around a lot of other people. So the big thing is, adjust your kits to have those items that you've been, using for the last couple of months, but also anticipate that when you go to the store to get, this thing or that thing, that maybe just like you've seen with toilet paper or paper towels, maybe it's not there. So everybody's going to be prepping for hurricane season at the exact same time, and we've seen the supply chain be very challenged by COVID. So I would just plan some more time into your kit making. Adjust your plans if you can. If you have not done a good job of planning to stay with family and friends out of the area or in a higher flood zone, a hurricane evacuation zone, that's really something you should look at this year, because if you're not comfortable being around other people in this COVID environment, you really need to take the sheltering, the evacuation decision-making process into your own hands and take charge of that, because you do not want to wait to the last minute and then you have to go to a shelter where you're going to be uncomfortable from a COVID perspective, being around a bunch of other people.
So let's talk a little bit about the idea of sheltering and evacuating. We as a city will be prepared to as much of an extent as we can to take people in should the need arise. But what we're trying to get across to our residents is that the best case scenario is for you to be able to self-sustain, whether that means, leave your home or shelter in place. So talk to me a little bit about that, and especially know your zone and knowing where you live within the city.
Yeah, so it's really important for citizens to know their zone. So you can go to, you can Google Know Your Zone, VA, Virginia, and you can look up your zone, your evacuation zone, by your address. And we've really changed the evacuation model in that we're not asking people to evacuate all the way to Danville or Harrisonburg or anything like that. What you can do with this zone map now is look and see if I'm in A, which is the lowest zone and the most likely to evacuate. Do I have friends that live in zone B or zone C or zone D, and can I go to their house and hunker down during an evacuation order instead of going all the way to, Richmond? And so that's really what we want people to kind of take that next step, to make that plan, to get personally prepared. It's going to be more critical than ever in this COVID environment to have personal preparedness related to hurricane evacuation and sheltering. We want citizens to get prepared and understand that it's going to be difficult to accomplish sheltering in a COVID environment.
Mm-hmm. And Rob, we can't talk about hurricanes without talking about flood insurance. Everybody needs it.
Everybody needs it. In our city, we highly recommend that every citizen look at flood insurance. It can flood anywhere it can rain, and so that's everywhere. Mm-hmm. So 80%, over 80% of our flood losses in Hurricane Matthew a couple years back were outside of the FEMA designated flood zone, flood insurance area. So we really encourage everybody to get flood insurance. Even if you're outside of the FEMA flood insurance area, your flood insurance can be very, very affordable. $300 or $400 for a year of hundreds of thousands of dollars of coverage. So we really want citizens to look at that. If you're in the FEMA flood zone, you need to have that flood insurance. You need to look at your policy, make sure it's up to date, and that is the primary tool that FEMA uses for flood recovery. If you're waiting for FEMA to come in and say, here's your FEMA check, those famous FEMA checks that people count on, the average FEMA check that somebody gives that doesn't have flood insurance is about $6,000. So if you're thinking that FEMA's going to come in and say, hey, here, I'm going to fix your home, $6,000 doesn't go a long way when you're talking about a flood loss in your house. So get flood insurance.
So all of this is being self-sufficient, being prepared ahead of time. Right. Rob, anything else you want to say?
No, just go out there and get prepared. Look up your zone, your evacuation zone, get that flood insurance.
All right, we will put links to everything and more information. Rob Braidwood, thank you so much. Well, the next election is just next month on June 23rd. Absentee voting is still the best way to go, and it's still an option for everybody, but there are some deadlines that you need to keep in mind. You have to request that absentee ballot by June 17th. You can get yours by visiting elections.virginia.gov. Now, if you vote in the 4th Congressional District, that's the southern section of the city, so Great Bridge, Hickory, Deep Creek, most of those areas, you'll actually have to choose when you request your absentee ballot which ballot you want. you can either choose the 2020 June Democratic primary ballot or the 2020 June Republican primary ballot. And you can pick either one regardless of your affiliation or of how you voted in the past. That doesn't matter. You can pick either one, but you can only pick one. Now, if you vote in the 3rd district, which is most of northern Chesapeake, then you only have the Republican primary ballot because the Democratic Party has already chosen incumbent Bobby Scott to be on the ballot come November. So just a few intricacies to know about in this upcoming June 23rd election. And of course, in-person voting will also be available. For more information on all the upcoming elections this year, visit cityofchesapeake.net/vote. And finally, an important training opportunity, all online. It's the Revive Opioid Education Program. So participants can learn how to recognize and respond to opioid overdoses. Medical experience is not necessary. The training is completely free, and again, it's all online. There's one on June 16th from 11 a.m. to noon, and there's one on June 30th from 2 to 3 p.m. You can register for either event by visiting cibhprevention.com or by giving them a call at 757-547-9334.
Skylar, Paige, Hewitt!
And we leave you this week with some scenes from graduations around Chesapeake, and it might not have been exactly what those graduates were thinking it would be, but Chesapeake would not let them go out without some sort of pomp and circumstance. So they did a great job. Congratulations to all of the graduates, and we wish you luck in whatever you're moving towards next year. Thank you all for watching. Stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.
Good job. Hold on now. Let's go, Minnow. So good. Get the hands in the air. Let's see some excitement. Get him up.